Hi everyone, Jambo as they say in Swahili. Welcome to another episode of Growth Well. Growth Well is a podcast that brings you a wealth of wisdom coming from Africa. And today we have a very special guest, an entrepreneur from here in Botswana, who plans to do big things for our country and also for our continent. My name is Oabona Kgengwenyane and glad to have you again. And the purpose of this podcast is really to bring positive impact to Africa and beyond through 10x insights and ideas. And really, again, to share unique stories coming out of Africa to hopefully encourage and inspire other Africans. But importantly, also to let the world know who we are. And that I need to underscore. Now here we have Mompoloki Mogobe, who is one of Africa's self-made entrepreneurs. And understand the word self-made. He's going to talk to us more about what he does, his success formula, and I hope that you'll pick some wisdom, especially the aspiring entrepreneurs out there. Before I ask Mogobe to tell us more about himself, I like to start with a fun moment, just to cheer up our episode. So I'd like to just ask Mogobe, in your life or entrepreneurship, or even in your personal family life, what is that you do for fun?
Yeah, we try to have a little bit of downtime every now and then. Wherever possible, Mama Hobe and I, we get away for about 5 days to a week every single month. And we find that it gives us a little bit of relaxation, that downtime in terms of just getting out of the hustle and bustle of entrepreneurship. And that's one thing we do. We travel quite a bit in that regard. And then, of course, I personally enjoy doing my exercises, my workouts. I love the minimum of 120 push-ups a day part.
Wow, you beat me.
And that keeps me going, because if I can win that in the morning, I feel that I can face anything. I think I did 140 before coming to the studio this morning.
Wow.
So it just helps to get involved in that physical activity. And I do my average of 10,000 steps a day as well. That also helps. I make sure that I incorporate it into my daily routine. So it's a bit of a health activity. So those are fun moments. And other than that, I try to involve my staff in around Fridays. I take them down to one of our restaurants and have a couple of drinks and chill with them.
Wow.
I try to sometimes focus on a different division every time. If, for instance, on a Friday I go out with the maintenance guy, next week I'll go out with the operations guy and his team, and then the other week I go out with the accounting people and things like that. So those things help to relax. And obviously, another thing we do is once a year we bring people like you for a form of team building activity where we bring experts and they share with us, and it's fun. It normally works out in the long run.
Oh, great. Great. I was telling you earlier that I used to be a break dancer. So even with the old bones, I still try it. It's interesting.
I still have the touch.
Yeah. It's interesting you mentioned that. We'll talk about your book later on. But going through your book, it's interesting how, I suppose because we are like the same generation, where, the fact that you've lived at the kettle post. I mean, I like your kettle post to the Mogobe Plaza, right in the CBD, in terms of your growth and in terms of your estate. But also, you went to Lesedi Primary School. I went to Lesedi Primary School. You went to GSS. I went to GSS. You're talking about 5S.
Yeah.
So I could relate to all that.
Oh, that's good.
So I have to emphasize that Mogobe, I've been on his podcast a number of times. I'm actually a beginner to this, thanks to him in terms of a lot of lessons that I've picked. So thank you for that.
You're
in terms
most
of
welcome.
You're very well-rounded. So Mogobe, I would like to regard you as a $1 million type entrepreneur from all your achievements. I don't know if you are comfortable calling you that, but I just like to appreciate that success in terms of the man in you with your journey. I know we'll talk more about your book later on as well, encapsulated in that. But I'd like you to tell the viewers, who is Mogobe?
It's
or Momp, if you'd like to be called.
Yeah, it's difficult to answer that in a sentence or two, but that's why I try to put it in a book. But I like to think myself as a product of two kettle posts, in the sense that it is these kettle posts, one being Makatanyane and the other one being Mahumalebi.
Both sounds so wacky.
Yeah, both of which had left an indelible mark in terms of my psyche and my thought process and my outlook. And some of the lessons that I picked there as I evolved, because I went first to Lesedi and then to Matsakhang and back to Lesedi and then eventually to GSS and then UB. And in between all this, the kettle post was a major part because my old man believed that we should at least once a month go there at month end. All the holidays have to be spent at the kettle post. So it had a powerful impact. So if you ask me who am I like to think of myself as a Botswana businessman who is a product of two kettle posts, who's trying to make a difference in people's lives. I mean, we employ collectively in excess of 200 people. Wonderful. And we are in the process of growing. And most of our businesses are centered around real estate as in property. So I'd like to think I have a little bit of knowledge and expertise in the property side, and I try to share it with others through the mentorship programs that I have. So I'm a work in progress. I'm also in the process of self-development. You remember there was a time when I came to you and I said, please help me 10x.
Exactly.
It's a desirable,
yeah.
It's a desirable thing that we have that we want to continually grow. And I would like to see myself evolving and growing in that regard as I bring along others. You know, I have these 4 pillars, as it were, where I say that my objective mainly is to enthuse, energize, inspire, as well as to empower others.
Wonderful.
So in an average day, I want to be able to do one of those things or all of those things.
You live for other people.
I'd like to say
that's the most fulfilling thing when your life is premised on helping people on the outside.
Indeed. Because I strongly believe in service. I think even the good book says that greatness comes from service.
Absolutely.
I think it's in the book of Mark where, I don't know whether you're a scriptural guy, but where Jesus talks about, talks to James and John and tells them that, look, I'm not here to set up a kingdom, but I assure you most assuredly that whoever is going to be great among you will be the servant of most.
Wow.
So first you have to humble yourself, in other words, to be exalted. Yes.
That's excellent. Related to that, my concern, Mogobe, is that, people like you and many others, and as an entrepreneur myself, I appreciate the challenges in terms of the Botswana and general African ecosystem, in terms of the struggles we go through to be a successful entrepreneur. Now, we celebrate you. I mean, what you've achieved over the time. I personally, I know how tough it is to run a business in this continent. So I would just like to take this time to say we need to celebrate people like you more. Our papers, our media, it's full of politicians and corporate people.
Yeah.
And you don't see more of the Mogobes. So I don't know where the challenge is because, and it's not a matter of trying to promote you or make you aloof of others. It's for the benefit of many others, because I strongly believe that Africa's rise and the future lies in entrepreneurship spirit. I don't know what you think of that.
No, I share that outlook. Obviously, it took a long time for us to start celebrating entrepreneurship. I don't know how it got twisted in the 60s or 70s, where successful business people were considered boraboko, and they were actually despised. I mean, but it took a long time, or it's taking a long time for us to actually celebrate our entrepreneurs. Whereas in places like America and Canada, entrepreneurs are rock stars.
Yes. Your Elon Musk, your Steve Jobs, they stand out.
All of those. But in Africa, we are lagging behind in terms of recognizing that. We still associate success and entrepreneurship with things like corruption or bad business practices. But with podcasts like yours and mine, with efforts like several others that are beginning to mushroom, I think there's a shift. Especially in the context of the presidential imperative of are change, or the mindset change in general. I think, to me, I don't know whether you've noticed, there's a shift. There's a beginning to realize that, look, you cannot expect to be employed all the time. You have to find your side hustle. You have to create your own employment, self-employment. So entrepreneurship is gradually becoming sexy again.
Yeah. I really hope so.
And it is beginning to be recognized.
And I think for our listeners out there who don't understand what Raboko is, but what Remogobe is alluding to is that long time ago, you used to have this entrepreneur in the village who owns a shop, and the people in the village will think that the riches actually come from witchcraft, that maybe there's been some child who's been sacrificed to enrich. So there was a negative connotation to aspects of being rich or being super rich. So you are saying that is part of how we've been left behind because of that type of narrative.
Yeah, and none of that I like to believe was true. The other aspect of that was a thinking that when you are self-employed or starting your own, oh, Shem, he can't find a job. So he has to find something. So there was a sense in which entrepreneurs were looked down upon, that, we're one-track minded, that employment, like you have to, go to school, get good grades and find good employment. That has been the narrative to the point where you share in one of the podcasts that I had with you that your mom was very, very sad when you set up your own
remember
business.
That? Yes.
And
how can I live corporate?
Yeah, how can you live corporate? How can you live Botswana? And you shared that story very dramatically. But the good thing is that after 5-10 years, she's now one of your biggest fans.
Absolutely.
So that tells me that there's a shift. There's a change in outlook in that regard.
Yeah, and we are responsible, as we said, through podcasts, through books, like you've written your book, which we'll talk more later on. So all that is throwing the narrative there that entrepreneurs have got a role to play in the development process.
I believe that the only time boroko bo itsamaisa sesole is in Setlhako. What do I mean by that? I mean, nothing happens by itself. There has to be conscious, deliberate action. And part of the reason 5 years ago I started my podcast was this realization. I didn't know what to do. That, look, let me start talking to entrepreneurs. And as a result, there is that change. And I'm so excited that you have seen it fit to step into the space and say, look, let me also take the space and let me take the initiative and do this and invite entrepreneurs and promote this idea that you can go out there in the marketplace and make a difference just through engaging the market, through an attitude of grit. My book talks about grit.
And endurance.
Endurance, that is it. Resilience. So that's what you need, especially here in this part of the world. If there's no resilience, if there's no grit, you cannot succeed.
Mogobe nuggets of wisdom. And I have to add that part of some of us, as I said earlier, the latecomers, were inspired by yourself. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
And we've got hints and nuggets of how to do it well.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure even after this, you'll give me a few tips.
You're
so
doing
back
brilliant.
to you, Mogobe.
Yes, sir.
You referred to yourself in the book as a serial entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like you to just unpack the serial aspects of the business in terms of obviously you participating in different and you migrated from law firm to other things. So can you just unpack that for why it's useful to have that type of pot made of different dishes, if you may?
Yeah. There's a funny story associated with that, because one of the things that I do in the serial thing is speaking. I try to speak to the audiences. So I was speaking to a particular corporate, or I was arranging to speak. And then one of the ladies there saw serial entrepreneur, and she said, "Is it like serial killer?"
Because that's everyone associates that word with.
Yeah, and they would laugh a lot. Killer. But all it means is that I'm of the mind that I want to start a series of businesses. Mm-hmm. Property may be my foundational businesses. Yeah. But if you look at the business we've started, the sanitation business, where we do waste collection, we run that business from our own properties. So it's related to property. And then if you look at the speaking business, I do a lot of my speaking in terms of teaching and whatnot in one of our buildings where I encourage others. So it's associated with property in that regard. And then, of course, if it comes to restaurants, we build those restaurants ourselves. We develop them. And then when it comes to the other business, which is we do mentorship as well. We do it also within the same setup. We're also involved in a brokerage and agency business. And you find that the other time I counted, there's about 18 companies involved in about 9 different spheres. So I like that idea of having a series of businesses. So the easiest term, especially if you're marketing yourself as a speaker and also a teacher, the easiest term I could hang on to was serial entrepreneur. I have a friend of mine in Zambia called Dumisani. I've had him on my podcast, and he calls himself a radical entrepreneur. Okay. So it is really about branding. It's really about marketing. So that's why we stick with that word, for good or for bad. We stick with it.
Serial killer. Yeah. But in management theory, there is always a debate as to, as a strategy consultant, they talk about the need to focus. Focus meaning define your core competency and stay in your lane.
Yes.
But there is another one that talks about, from a risk point of view, that, don't have your eggs in one basket. Diversify. In other words, diversify your portfolio. And I can recall, the super entrepreneurs out there, even Warren Buffett, he invests in different portfolios. Elon Musk has got a number of interests in terms of companies. Peter Diamandis, and now he talks about 23 companies. The famous speaker, Tony Robbins, he's got 13. He's a multi-billionaire now. And they all have, as you said. So do you think it's also part of risk management? In other words, when the property, you have a big drop in the property market, you are able, because I think this is very important for aspiring entrepreneurs to know which way. And sometimes us as entrepreneurs or as from management point of view, we confuse these poor guys. Which way to go? Do I focus on one, or do I have a basket?
It's a paradox. It's a brilliant paradox, and it's one that entrepreneurs have to be comfortable with. The person who has made it easy for me to think about it is a guy called Malcolm Gladwell. He wrote a book called Blink and another one called Outliers.
Yes, Outliers.
I think in one of those books, he emphasizes the need for 10,000 hours.
Yes, yeah.
So in as much as people like Carnegie and the original thinker said, put all your eggs on one basket, and watch that basket.
Yes.
That's how they grew.
Yeah.
But you soon realize that the basket gets to a point where it has grown. In other words, if you spend your 10,000 hours as an entrepreneur, become so good at one thing, the results and the fruits of that one thing will lead to profitability, will lead to assets being generated, other additional to growth potential being generated from what you are growing. And that's when you think in terms of diversification. Even the example of people like Bill Gates, okay, he's a software guy.
Yeah, started with Microsoft.
But he did so well in the software space, and there's so much money. And then he started now getting into philanthropy. Now he's one of the biggest farm
owners.
Farm
yes,
owners in the world.
Accumulating so much land.
So much land. So he's diversified into other areas. Even people that talk about the importance of focus and concentration, and like Warren Buffett. If you analyze Warren Buffett, once he said to people that, look, the reason I'm successful is because I'm in the insurance business. People say, insurance? without you are responsible for allocating capital.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then he explains that, yes, what happens is that Geico and his insurance pumps so much cash. There's so much cash being generated like this. At some point, he used to use expressions like, he feels like an oversexed guy in a whorehouse when he has all this money. I mean, I'm reading from his books and his annual reports. That sometimes that's how he feels when he's now has so much capital to allocate, and then he allocates it. So it's a dichotomy, it's a contradiction in terms, but it's true on both ends.
It is quite interesting. Yeah. But I think you and I are sort of migrating towards having, especially, markets like ours, which are not sophisticated, which are not huge, to try and rely on just one core. I mean, for us at InnoLead in our companies, we found that consulting is a cash business.
Yes.
And you don't grow a good balance sheet very well with consulting. So we found almost naturally that you got to, as in your area, we got to invest in property.
Yeah.
We, as you know, we also went into farming, which are totally different, which are also, I love farming, as you are aware. So those create a very good balance in terms of risk management, in terms of when one doesn't perform, and then you got rain, and then the cattle are fat, you're able to add.
Yes.
So there's a good balance
so it makes
in terms
sense
of your risk management perspective.
Yes. I think if you're a scriptural guy, the whole of the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 11, speaks about this. Cast your bread upon many waters.
Yes.
And it talks about the importance of diversification. So it's an important concept. Know your area, spend your 10,000 hours, be good there.
Yeah.
But when the results come, do something else or be able to diversify into other areas so that you are not just exposed to one area in terms of risk.
And this is even extendable beyond just us as entrepreneurs. You can take a Botswana Pty Limited and say, we have relied so much on diamonds, we've relied so much on mining. We've done it so well. But, well, that's a different picture because those will run out anyway, they're finite. So it's important that the country looks at other aspects of revenue.
The country has been talking about that for quite some time. Even as way back as Nakwa Ramochai, there was talk of diversification, there was talk of bringing in investors, and it's become a song now. We're struggling to
to diversify, isn't it?
And this is why the last 3 years we've invited Forbes under 30 to come here in an effort to attract investors so that we can move away from diamonds. Yes.
Great. And then back to you. Property.
Yes.
That's, you were talking about core and other things that we bring in. I assume that property is really, that's where you did your schooling. This is where your base has been on in terms of property development. So can you talk more about that business so that aspiring entrepreneurs out there who wish to go into property or estate can know the nuances of it and basically what they need to do to be successful from a Botswana perspective, and also touching from an Africa perspective, whether it's actually a good area for those that love property but they're wondering.
It is from me like a second core area that I focused on. Originally, as a lawyer, I was
practicing.
I was practicing and running but gradually property eclipsed, as it were, and overtook the law. But yes, property is an interesting business. If you look around the world internationally, you'll find that successful people if they don't make their money in property,
Mm.
they store their money
In
once they've made
yeah.
it elsewhere
Yeah,
in
they
property.
put in, yeah.
So it is good in terms of income generation and also a storage of wealth.
Mm.
So I one of the first things that I do with my mentees, I try to get them to undergo some kind of brain transplant
Mm-hmm.
to coming from the mindset of an employee to think of to develop themselves into a mindset of a business owner.
Mm.
And property helps you do that. And I show them how through 4 levels in terms of appreciation, in terms of rental, collection, in terms of you can hack a property, in terms of developing it into other things. And there's so many avenues by which you can enhance a property with a view to getting what we call the highest and best use of that property. So in my case, it started with just the need to find my own roof over my head.
That you own.
That I own, instead of being harassed by a
by
a landlady.
landlord.
Yeah. I had a landlady who was literally harassing me because I would advance her money. She would ask me to pay for 2 months, or for instance.
Yeah.
And then before the other month ends, she would already be asking for more. So I felt harassed, and she incentivized me to look for my own property. So it just started in the sense of realizing, and before I knew it, as I acquired more and more, the property eclipsed overtook the law in terms of But I just love property. I think as an income stream, it is ideal. Here in Botswana, in terms of the huge potential that it has, if you look at the amount of just land, even in gaps, that needs to be developed. If you look at the needs in terms of people coming out of our tertiary institutions, students or rather graduates needing accommodation, the need is so vast, so huge. There's literally not enough property developers, in my judgment, to meet the need.
And it's sustainable in the long term from a Botswana perspective. And what are those aspects that makes it attractive, uniquely from a Botswana perspective? Is it to do with the stable economy, the currency? What makes it really so attractive?
Political stability is obviously key. I mean, sometimes I wonder what happens if suddenly a dictatorship takes over. What's going to happen to the like of us?
God forbid.
And God forbid, and we pray against that, of course, because I'm myself concentrated in Botswana. I found that Botswana, the macroeconomic environment is really, really ideal for property investment. I have spread my wings in Maung in the north, and also here in the south in Gaborone. And both areas are, in a sense, booming, because if you want to look at it, look at what happened around COVID. COVID, there's a lot of devastation, but you look at the valuations in terms of property valuations, they never went down. If anything, they went up marginally. So that tells you that the underlying dynamics are very, very strong. And obviously, the manner in which the land boards have been giving out plots and distributing property has also inadvertently added to the demand, in the sense that they haven't allocated quite at the pace that the government wants. The demand. So there's a number of factors, the biggest of which is the political stability and the type of returns you can get. The returns you can get in terms of the ability to not only cover the mortgage, if you buy well, obviously you have to know what you're doing, and the ability to make profit as well, and the ability for long-term sustainability. Remember that property has 2 major forces that work for you. One is appreciation, and the other is income generation in terms of
rental
and so on. And then if you play your game right, for instance, if you allow for unforeseen emergencies in terms of the way you budget and plan your things, if, for instance, you ensure that you have a very reliable rental collection mechanism and system, you can do very well. But you have to invest in these things. For the properties to work for you, you have to understand your numbers.
Mm.
And I cannot emphasize this one more strongly, where I teach people about yield. I teach people about, the importance of understanding cap rates.
Mm-hmm.
How does that work? What is a cap rate? And the importance of understanding cash on cash return.
Mm-hmm.
The importance of appreciating what it means to win on day one. You want to buy assets that make you win or cash generate from day one. So those are the sort of things I emphasize to my students and make sure that they get it right. And I'm on seventh. I'm about to start the 7th cohort of students.
Wonderful.
And from these 6, in terms of the feedback I've been getting, it's been very, very positive. We're actually creating multi-millionaires
through
this program.
Well done, man. Well done.
Yeah.
Proud of Monketswarna. So you would say that there's a lot of future in estate.
Massive. Yeah. Massive. If some of your viewers are interested, they should get in touch with us and join the next cohort and see whether they can be part of our mentorship program.
You haven't explored it at Africa level. I'm saying this because in Africa we are now talking about 1.2 billion people. We are talking 60% youth. So you can imagine the flood of youth from university, just like you're using the example from a Botswana perspective, that are coming online, that are coming onto jobs. So would you say the same thing from a Botswana perspective is perhaps also applicable from an Africa perspective?
I think
if
so.
Other African entrepreneurs are watching and say, what do I do? How do I learn from this gentleman from Botswana?
I think it's definitely replicatable or replicable. In other parts of the world. In fact, I've watched 1 or 2 podcasts where people have done very well in Ghana. People have done very well in Nigeria on the property side. People have done very well. There's a guy called, is it Odomeyo? Is that the name of the guy? Odomeyo, is it? The short guy who does a podcast on Africa and interviews millionaires in Africa who've done very well, even Zimbabwe. So it seems that this is something that can be replicated across. In terms of my own podcast, this year we started late last year, we started making it available online, where even up to now, even half of our students watch us online.
Oh, beautiful.
So it is in that sense possible for somebody to enroll and to know, to communicate with us and to be able to join in and learn and participate in the training from whichever part of the world they are at, whichever part of Africa it is. But so far it's been concentrated in Botswana. But there's no reason why it can't go
from an Africa-wide perspective.
Yeah, we can make it continental, yes.
One of the issues you talk about that has supported you're also supporting young people with, is the aspect of mentoring. How has that been key to your whole entrepreneurship career in terms of building that resilience and grit that you talk about? Is that being quite fundamental?
In some senses, it has helped me more than it has helped them. Or I would say that we've benefited equally. One of the other mentorship efforts I do is prison ministry, where I go to first offenders ministry and I share some of these ideas with them and encourage them when they get out of jail to become entrepreneurs. And I do that by way of sharing a series of seminars over time with them.
Okay, beautiful.
So what most entrepreneurs need to discover is that when you teach, when you share with others, you actually benefit in some senses a lot more because you get to focus more, you get to learn more, you pick subtleties and nuances from the subject area.
And you burn more 10,000 hours preparing for the...
Yes,
so
absolutely.
You get deeper into the subject.
You really get very granular and get into the deeper aspects of the subject. Yeah. So it has proven very, very powerful. We do it at the level of real estate through the mentorship program, but we also do it through Angel Network Botswana. Angel Network Botswana is an organization we started in 2020 where we invest into young startups.
Correct. Yeah.
Where we take our hard-earned money as a group of entrepreneurs. There are now close to 50 of us in the network. And to think that there were only 3 of us when we started originally in 2020, but a lot of entrepreneurs have joined in. You should become a member, Mr.
Yeah. We'll talk. We'll talk.
But my point is that through the mentorship committee of which I'm a head, me and Re Gurumuti.
Yes, I know Re Gurumuti.
Yes,
the Guru Group.
Of the Guru Group. We had the mentorship committee. So we're able to take these youngsters who have a business idea, we help them through the business canvas, develop their pitch. And once they are, and we try and wrestle with them a little bit to get them pitch ready. Once they are ready to pitch, we put them in front of other investors or other entrepreneurs in the group, in the angels, we call them, to see if they're interested in investing. So mentorship is huge in what I do, and it's part of what I do. I try to engage in mentorship whenever I can.
And those that have mentored you?
Yes, I'm also a beneficiary. In the book, I talk about the 3 giants.
That's where I'm coming from.
Yes, and mentorship is very, very, very powerful and key. The first mentor that I had was Re Mahang. We didn't have a formal contract. It wasn't, but I was watching him. I could see how relaxed he was about teaching. He used to come to the university to share, sometimes on behalf of the BDP. And then when I started working at Minchin and Kelly, he was a consultant there, and I used to interact with him.
Okay.
There was a time when he was jokingly, I don't know whether he was joking, when he told me he had gone bankrupt.
Is it? Was that before Pakalan or during Pakalan?
I think before Pakalan or just before Pakalan.
Okay.
He had a company called Botuka Construction that fell, but he was laughing. The amazing thing is that he was laughing when he told me.
He expected to be distressed.
Yeah, and that sort of mindset, even when he talked about how his government was blocking him, even his own cabinet.
Yeah, he had such struggles.
Yeah, he wrote about in the book.
He did.
But when he talks about, he's always laughing and jovial.
Yeah.
And that taught me quite a bit about how to deal with problems. It's him. And then I had a client called Said Abofazal Jamali. He owns an outfit known as Universal Builders.
Yeah.
He's I think he owns close to 5,000 units, if I'm not mistaken,
in
or
Botswana
more.
Here,
And he's done very, very well. But he started with a briefcase coming from Persia, also known as Iran, and coming here and in the 80s or late 80s, and he started a business. And he taught me, and he showed me the basics, that it doesn't take an extraordinary amount of brilliance. All it takes is grit, persistence, and hard work. And he actually told me and urged me to try property.
Okay, because at your early stage, these are the early parts of your career.
I would say it's around 2001 or 2002 when we had these conversations. So about 22 years ago.
Wow.
And then when I did, it worked out. And I read more, I learned more about it. And then the other major mentor is Mr. Muni.
Okay.
And these last 2 were also my clients. So it helped to be able to interact them as I was doing work for them as a young lawyer. They were sharing information. So my message is that you can also be mentored by people you work with.
Absolutely.
So if you are prepared
people you
to
interact with in your scope of work. Yeah.
Yes. So so that's what happened to me, and all 3 of them, kudos to them. And I still tell them, I'm what I am because of you, gentlemen. Yeah.
So they made a huge impact in your
massive. Yeah. Look where they are now. Look at Transafrica. Transafrica is massive now. And when they were mentoring me, they probably had 1 or 2 outposts. Now Transafrica, they own shopping malls. They own so many outlets throughout the country. So they're also growing. To use your expression, they also 10x.
They are 10x, yes, 10x their careers,
or maybe the 100x. so they encourage me to think in terms of 10xing and 100xing myself.
You picked something there that you mentioned, when you were listening to Remahang being, one of Botswana's very proud millionaires with Pakalani estate that he's built, that he's built himself, is how he remained positive and alive. And it reminded me of, they say in the world, only 5% of the global population are true entrepreneurs. And one of the things about entrepreneurs is that even during times of distress, one writer was saying, even with issues of tax, even with issues, I tell my staff, it's like, sometimes you don't know, or at the end of the month, we take pain that we are like, worried whether we'll be able to pay you.
Almost every
paying
month.
you got the tax man, you got clients that are giving you a hard time. These are people that despite all those challenges, we're still able to have a peaceful sleep. Isn't that very unique?
That is remarkable. I think it's an important component.
Yeah, that we still walk around, we smile.
Why? Because we believe that there's always a light at the end of that tunnel. There's always things that are going to always improve. So I call myself an eternal optimist for that reason, meaning that it doesn't matter how bad and how ugly it gets. There's always a way out. If you look at our business at any given time, we have either a piece of litigation or threat of litigation happening. You have a customer who's not paying you when they should be paying you. You have a hater who's saying something bad about you.
Yeah. Success. Unfortunately, success attracts.
Yes.
Those ones that wouldn't like to see you get up there.
Yes.
Unfortunately, that's
so it's important.
Comes with the game.
It's important for us as entrepreneurs to remind ourselves that work on our temperament. That calmness. It's worth its weight in gold, so to speak. It's worth a lot. You have to remain calm. You have to remain centered. You have to remain focused and grounded at any given time.
Because you'll be tested and tested and tested.
Yes.
And there is even a lot of literature around how, and maybe we are guilty of it, where we over-glamorize entrepreneurship without actually, telling the aspiring entrepreneurs about I wouldn't say the dark side, but the challenges that come with it. What is not just a plate on the table.
No.
It comes with a lot of, we'll talk about grit shortly.
Yeah.
But it's not just glamour. And because we talked earlier about how, entrepreneurs are taking center stage and got the Elon Musk, they're all sexy and funky and making headlines. But hey.
Sweat. They call it blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah.
I forgive me for keeping on going to scripture, but sometimes
please do.
You find, in the book of Proverbs, when it says a wicked man falls to his destruction, but a righteous man rises 7 times. The idea is that don't give up. The scripture implies that it's wickedness to give up, because a wicked man falls to his destruction. Whereas a righteous man will say, yeah. So I say to my mentees sometimes, don't be wicked, don't give up. Just because there's a massive problem doesn't mean you should collapse. And there's a book I've read by a guy called Ryan Holiday called The Obstacle is the Way.
Obstacle is the way.
Yeah, it's
the stoicism.
Yeah, it's based on the idea of being a stoic.
A stoic, yes.
To recognize that your path lies with that obstacle.
Exactly.
Because you have to either go through it, run, blow it up, or drill through it, find a way. Your job is to find that way, and your way is the very obstacle that you are focused on. So in terms of entrepreneurship, yes, we are guilty. Maybe we over-glamorize it. I don't know. People see us driving certain type of cars or living in certain types of homes, and they think they only see the end result.
Exactly.
They don't see the rough and tumble side. The analogy that I think of is that of a tree. If you look at a tree, the roots are embedded in the soil, where there's manure and ugliness and whatnot.
Exactly.
But at the top, you see those beautiful fruits that we enjoy. We take the fruits. Yeah. But the most important part, arguably, is the roots in terms of what they have to deal with in accessing those nutrients. There's a lot of ugliness. There's smells. So that's how an entrepreneur is. It doesn't matter how successful they're out there. but watch the roots, watch at the bottom. There's a lot of ugliness.
Yeah,
There's worms. There's all kinds of things
and dangers and
all kinds of things at the bottom.
Mm.
So we have to remind young entrepreneurs that it comes with a package as well.
But let me challenge you. Do you think, though, having said all the the obstacle is the way, take the challenge, persevere, there could be time to quit where isn't in my game?
Well, I'm not a quitter myself, but I know what you alluding
because you
to.
could be part of the 5% that are able. Because I'm saying this because there's a lot of literature about how entrepreneurship is causing divorces, is causing mental health. A lot of entrepreneurs that go into alcoholism and substances purely because of those things that we're talking about, where it gets tough and not everybody is made for it.
Yeah, I'll readily concede that we're not all made for it. But I think once you've taken that path, you want to stick with it. But of course, there's a lot of literature about don't start a business unless you have an exit strategy. There's a lot of thinking that people should work their businesses so that they look forward to what they call a liquidity event.
Absolutely.
In terms of cashing out and moving on. I just happen not to believe in that.
Because that's who you are.
I'm not in that category of entrepreneurs because I believe we're in it for the long haul. I'm doing what I can to bring my children, my sons especially, into the business to encourage some kind of intergenerational continuity.
Correct.
And so I can't speak on both ends of my my mouth and on the one hand speak of resilience and grit, and on the other hand I say no, like there's a time to quit and you can rewire. What is rewiring? Rewiring means taking it a bit slow, perhaps passing your responsibility to others and slowing down, but quitting now.
Recalibrate. I mean, some of the entrepreneurs that do this very well, if it's what you are referring to, is an example. I don't know if one of the podcasts we've had, I've talked about who, not how. In other words, how to get people who are uniquely talented in some aspects of the business. You bring them on and then you move on.
Yes.
For instance, founders have this sometimes obsession to keep on looking after the business at operations. Sometimes founders are not good operational people. So you need to find a good general manager or COO, and then you now go, because you did all those things, you put the initial processes, the initial strategies, and you can't, and maybe now when it comes to maintaining and keeping this going, it's not your talent, it's not your unique skills.
Amen to that. I mean, that's exactly what we do. I mean, I have a COO.
And you talked about how, in your book, about how a few years ago, I think your staff were a bit worried when you moved away from, was it from the law firm?
Yes.
When you...
when I moved from the law firm, there was doom and gloom. When I also appointed people and started now traveling more and opening other business, there was a lot of doom and gloom around it in terms of in the boardroom when you announce these changes. People get really miserable. But after a while, the same people say, no, it was a good move. But yes, I think your point is well made that sometimes founders are not really ideal for continuity and growth. And you should have the presence of mind and the humility as a founder to say, when it comes to day-to-day management, I'm not good at this. I am one of those people who know for a fact I'm not good in terms of minutiae. If you want to tell me that your pipe is broken up and your toilet is not working, I politely tell you, no, there are people for
exactly. Sometimes those things even give you anxiety instead of excitement. You're like, but there are things that give me energy. Not that one.
Not that one. Yes. Because you have hired people to deal with those problems.
No, that's excellent.
Remo
Mogobe, the book. The book. And this is the book here by Remo Mogobe, recently launched. A beautiful storyline about an entrepreneur who is self-made here in Botswana and Gaborone, and to make a portfolio that goes into millions and millions of dollars. So I have to say, again, congratulations. And I'm hoping that, as I said earlier, we'll have time to go through the book in more detail. It's got some saucy stories in there.
It does.
I'd like us to visit,
Yeah.
how your family, your mother, school, girls, all those. So I'd like us to, I'd like us to share all those.
Yeah.
But there's, and as I said earlier at the beginning of the podcast, and I like to underline it, as Africans, I was telling you earlier about how I go to the strategic coach workshop in Canada every quarter to mingle with other entrepreneurs in North America. And when I tell them about my experiences as an entrepreneur in Africa, their eyes glow. They're like, wow. Like I was telling them the story about how recently in our farming enterprise, lions had come into the farm and they were killing and eating some of our animals for weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, you should have seen their eyes.
They couldn't believe it.
They said, we've never heard about a business that gets eaten away by lions.
The stock gets eaten away.
By lions. Exactly, the stocks, exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, and that's really the philosophy. We need to tell our stories to the world.
You made me curious. How did you address that problem?
In the end.
You made me so curious. I can't help it. I'm just have a curious nature.
Well, in the end, because it was basically camping. It was a big male lion camping in the farm there by CKGR at the place called Sandveld. So every second night it will come to the cross, and the farm workers were just 50 meters away. So they will be panicking. They'll hear the noise and it rumbles and the crow, catching one of the beasts and eating them away. And then it will go away for 2 days, come back again. So obviously it has to be in the hands of the wildlife because even my wife are, sustainability people. So we don't just take a gun and start shooting them. We also want to balance. So we call the wildlife people to come and deal with the event. Yeah, they came and they were not keen to actually kill the animal. But fortunately,
do you shoot it at night? It must be difficult to shoot at night.
No. You can actually trace it during the day. Actually, our workers during the day, I think they could follow the spoor or the footprint. So they actually followed it. Yeah. And they found it under a tree. Oh. And then half of them ran. But the unique thing, and I would tell you about my book that I'm writing, and I go into how the people of the area, the Sen, Basarwa, how they're able to track and how they're able to control themselves even when they see the animal. I mean, I get shocked by in these areas, they've lived with lions, but you never hear what a lion has killed somebody because they've learned how to deal with it. I mean, we had one of the workers who was half blind, and he will work late at night, chopping, we call it doing the lines around the fences to clear the lines. And he'll come back late. They said, how do you walk in this bush that is infested with lions? And they know how. They have their own tricks. So there's a lot of indigenous knowledge in that as well. But to cut story short, after a few weeks of it killing the animals, it just left and went to the next farm. I was just updated by one of our farm workers that it's busy in the next farm. Because we are all now very cautious. Remember, the killing of lions was banned by the previous president. So we're all really wary about the drop in numbers of lions in Botswana. So we're trying to balance. Yes. And in Botswana, bare matata So the fact that we lost a couple of beasts, for me, it's like they will multiply. Okay. So it's a sustainable way of looking at it.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's how we.
I'm looking forward to seeing your book, by the way.
No, the launch is end of September 30th. Botswana's independence, and then it will be all over. It will be launched online as well.
Excellent stuff.
So tell us you talk about grit in the book, and just as a last detail, if you can relate to your journey, and I know we touched on it a little bit, but what exactly do we mean by the power of grit leading to a successful business, and how essential it is to an entrepreneur to have that characteristic?
I'll give you an example. If you want to develop a shopping mall, for instance, you submit an application that if that shopping mall has a filling station, you'll be asked for an EIA, After the EIA, you may be told that this not type of EIA, this other one. And then you'll also be told that the person who's supposed to process your application is on leave and there's nobody else who can handle it. You'll come again and you'll be told that the person who's supposed to assist you has gone on maternity leave. And then after you've done it all, after many, many visits, you'll be informed that the land use for which you had expected that thing has changed or has been rezoned. What am I saying? There'll be a series of obstacles.
Frustrating obstacles.
The tendency among our people is to say, these things, it's intimidating. Now we are not made for this.
It's tiring.
It's tiring. And
you get fatigued.
You get fatigued. And then on top of this, there's a phenomenon that we have called tsele. Whether we want to admit it or not, there's a thing where, for reasons that are not clear, maybe they're colonial in nature, we've come to believe in our own inferiority to the point where you'd have a government official who has it within his power to make an approval for something you need. But for reasons of tsele or this, I think you can call it self-hatred.
An inferiority complex.
Complex of some kind. They will not give you, they would rather give it to somebody of another nationality.
Who comes from outside.
And then you go to some of our banks and they you apply and they punch holes in your project. And then you even go to our development, they do that. So you'll see that there'll be a series of no's and difficulties and maybes and hardships and setbacks that seem to be calculated to cause you to give up. They're just calculated to cause you to give up. So you need to understand that without the sense of resilience, a sense of perseverance, a sense of determination, a sense of never say die attitude, which you have to work on, it doesn't happen automatically. And for me, I use the weapon of personal development or through avid readership, where I had to just instill it in myself that no, it's going to be okay. Keep persisting. Focus on the prize. Go there with the end in mind. Focus on the prize. So I think it's something that I thought was important enough to mention it in the book to the point of calling it nuggets of grit.
Correct.
Also coming from my litigation background, the cases that I've won are cases that were unwinnable. There are cases I was supposed to lose. Even when we had our meetings with our teams, this one,
it's a tough one.
A tough one. So, but because of that thing, that culture of grit, that extra something, that persistence, do that extra research, argue more forcefully. I mean, we have situations where 9 o'clock in the morning, you start to argue before a judge. The judge is totally hostile, wants you out of that thing in a hurry.
You off,
Yeah, but you persist. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, if you stand on your feet, because you're entitled to argue your case, stand on your feet, you see the same guy now nodding. Come 3 o'clock, if the case is important enough, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, now I follow. And then you get what you want, you get the result you want. If you're able to persuade one person from a position of hostility to a position where they agree with you in a courtroom, you can do the same in an entrepreneurship. So that is the argument I'm making, that you need that trait for you to succeed, to get where you belong as a successful entrepreneur.
And that's how your whole journey has been characterized by.
Indeed.
Great by those incidents.
Yes. And also the journey of my mentors. If I ask them closely, I mean, some of them have actually been broke at some point and they've lost it all.
And Ramakhang, I mean.
Yeah, Ramakhang.
I mean, that's why he also labeled his book, What is the Magic of Perseverance?
Yes.
I mean, again, grit had to
come
in.
in.
Play book. Yeah, his own colleagues sabotaging him.
Yes.
In his,
in his efforts. And even the others, we may not know their stories. They're not that open. But they tell me. They tell me, look, I've had
it's been tough.
Mr. Mooney and Mr. Jamali, they've had it tough. There are times when they nearly lost it all, or they lost it all and recovered. So I think grit is an important component that we don't talk enough about it. There's a woman called Angela Duckworth,
yes,
who has written about it,
grit,
who has dedicated her life to it. and has argued very forcefully, and I agree with her, that it's one of the most important ingredients.
Yeah.
For success.
She actually goes ahead in the book you are referring to, where she says grit is more important than IQ. Where she gives a lot of examples of students who were not talented from an IQ point of view, but because of perseverance and passion and pursuit of a long-term goal, they managed to get their ambitions and their goals. That's quite, for me, that was quite a unique thing. Where there are people that grit can be acquired, and it actually can make you successful, even if. Because sometimes we, our schooling system, if you're not hot in maths and getting A's and all that, you're not talented, then like your future is done. But if you can adopt this very gritty and resilient type attitude, you can still make it.
I mean, there are some CEOs, and I may be one of them, that will not employ at a senior level someone who hasn't failed spectacularly, who hasn't had major setbacks, who hasn't suffered. Because your view is that, my view at least, is that such a person in a key position, like let's say chief financial officer or chief operations officer, or even in the area of any other area, including operations, if they haven't really had major setbacks and climbed back from them, then they haven't done, for me, the necessary schooling that you need to get on.
Because those experiences, they contribute to gritty behavior.
Indeed.
In terms of having had setbacks in the past.
Yes. If you just had it smooth, chances are the first
you think
sign
life
of trouble,
is like that?
They refused. They're going to refuse. And become your own enemy. Yeah, that's true. You become your own enemy and you lose before you even go into the battle.
We are coming to the end of our podcast. It's been a blast, and thank you very much. But just on a last note, I just like to, from what we've discussed, very rich. And I'm sure, knowing you and I, will catch up again soon. Whether on yours or bringing you back in. But I like to just ask you, is there any question or topic that you think this journey is really, again, to help entrepreneurs from an African perspective in terms of getting this continent where we should be. I was reading somewhere about how Africa, we've always provided resources for other people. Would you know, during the Roman Empire, they relied on Egypt for grain 5,000 years ago. Do you know that they relied, sadly, relied on us for human resources in the name of the dreadful slavery? Do you know that they came here during colonization to now take our land?
And our resources.
Yes. Now, when are we becoming the players where we can even go and take something from them? So my motivation is really that Africa can rise, and the work that you are doing, hopefully the work that I'm doing, and many other well-meaning Africans there together, we can really make this continent a place. Contributions from Botswana, from Benin, from Gabon, from everywhere. We have a responsibility to. For one day when you and I are sitting in our 95-year-old swinging chairs, we're like, we made a contribution. Because Africa now, we're getting 6% growth rates, poverty, all those things. And that's why I take it very serious that entrepreneurs are people that can make it happen. So I just wanted to ask you, is there any specific question or topic that you think I can throw to other guests that I'm going to invite, or any topic that it's important that we handle as part of this journey?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. But I think one area where we may need to focus more is the history of our history.
Yeah.
What do I mean by that? Even when you talk about things like slavery, you talk about being dominated. In terms of world history, these may be recent times. But if you go back further, and unfortunately we have not written enough, but anecdotally, when you dig here and there, you can see that there were times when Africa was on top.
Absolutely.
I would say that during the time of the Egyptians, we certainly were a superpower by any definition. We've had kingdoms of Mali, we've had kingdoms of Menamutapa, and we have so many other kingdoms, even the time of Shaka. It's just that the narrative that was written and represented for those areas was not written so much by us.
Yes.
But there are some scholars, they're out there, African scholars who are exposing these things, who are talking about them. Some of them are on YouTube. I would like to hear more about our exploits, about our successes, about our achievements. For instance, the time of the Dark Ages. What was happening in Africa around the time of the Dark Ages?
Yes.
The pre-slavery period. What was happening around
the Enlightenment
Africa?
periods,
Yes.
the Renaissance,
Yes.
all those periods.
Because when you get into our history, you then go deeper and even talk about the Kota system, the Ubuntu, all these things.
Yes.
You need scholars to interrogate these subjects and go deeper.
Yeah.
So I would really love for those areas to be talked about more and to be explored more, perhaps with spices of entrepreneurship along the way.
I love that.
Yeah.
You know, that's my language.
Yes.
You know, going back to, like I said, you know, we read philosophy. You know, you've quoted a number of, you know, when we start quoting, you know, Thomas Hobbes and John Locke and all those guys. Where are our John Locke's from African perspective? You know what I mean?
Question, yeah.
So these are the things that indeed I want to unpack. And I think it was Tony Robbins who said, an entrepreneur needs to understand the patterns of what's happening in the world. And you can't do that without knowing history.
You can't. No.
A good place to end.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome.
Mogobe. Wonderful stuff. And I hope our viewers have really appreciated the insights that you shared with them. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it. That's the Growth Well podcast. Thanks very much for watching. And I hope you found this beneficial. And then next week, please, first remember, press the like and the subscribe button so that we can keep bringing you some good stuff. You just heard from Remo Mogobe. We're going to bring you some good stuff about where Africa and how African history can impact on you as an entrepreneur. So, see you next week. Cheers.